privilege now to invite onto the stage Joseph. Joseph, if you'd like to come on up. Joseph's an expert on communication technology. He advises organizations across the world, from USA to India. Will you welcome Joseph?
Thank you. What does technology really mean? It comes across as a nebulous word because it means different things to different people. But the classic definition of technology, if you looked it up in a dictionary, is that it is knowledge and skill applied to practical usage. So what then is a machine or a technological tool? A machine is a gadget or a contrivance that extends the power of the human body or the human mind in order to extend beyond its natural ability or limits. The human being is a creative person, and the only animal that God created in his own likeness so that he can be a tool-making creator himself. And the purpose of making tools for a human being is threefold, and we see that even early on in the book of Genesis. The first is utilitarian purpose. We make tools in order to be of utility. An example would be Adam creating a tool for agriculture in Genesis chapter 3. The second is artistic. We see Jubal, again in Genesis chapter 4, where he creates a harp in order to express himself to God through music. Thirdly, it is for protection and attack. In Genesis chapter 4 again, we see Cain using a tool in order to attack his brother. The internet then is the most powerful tool. It's a paradigm-changing tool given to us in our generation. Yesterday in the opening celebration, we talked about how the printing press was a tool that was able to be leveraged by Martin Luther, and the reason why he was able to transform the world and the birth of the Protestantism happened in his generation because of the tool of the printing press. I believe, and many believe, that the internet is such a technology that allows us in our generation to transform the world. Convergent media. Now, why is it that someone like me, who's a computer geek, invited to come and talk along with all the cool media types? That's because the internet has converged many different media into one single complex multimedia tool. The internet brings together voice, video, and data to work together synergistically to produce an effect that enriches the multimedia experience of the person who's viewing it. But like most tools, the problem with the internet and the convergent media is that it can be used for good or for evil. So the question placed before us as the church or as an individual is, are we going to embrace this tool, this technology in our generation, or are we going to relinquish it and give up and abandon the possibility of using this opportunity in order to impact the world? Well, assuming that we are all choosing to use convergent media, we need to find some principles that can guide us along the way to use it effectively and properly. But there are no biblical principles that actually say, here are the 5 ways in which you can use the internet, right? So what do we do about that? Well, we know that the human body is a machine or a tool given to the soul to be used temporarily while we're here on earth. And there are enough biblical principles given to us about the use of the human body. And what I'm suggesting is that we draw lessons on what the Bible has to say about the use of the human body and apply that to the use of technology and to the use of tools. It does call for a little bit of imagination, but please bear with me because I think we can draw some really good lessons out of that. Just few principles that I can draw from that, 5 that I can list out during the brief time we have together. First of all, information and media technology belongs to God. As He is the creator of all things, and He has given us the ability to create tools and technologies, He is also the owner of it all. And so we need to treat it as a steward, just as we do with our human body. Secondly, we need to remember that the internet has real and physical implications. Every email that we read, every graphic that we see, every video that we watch has been created by people somewhere. And let us not forget that there are people and there are lives and there is reality behind what we see on this internet, which we also sometimes call the cyberspace. Thirdly, the internet has the potential to enlighten the world. And that's a little bit hard for us to grasp sometimes simply because of the proliferation of evil content on the internet. But the fact remains that it can be used quite powerfully as it is the cheapest, fastest medium to reach the widest audience. Christ, the fourth principle, is Christ is to be honored in all that we do with these tools, and that includes the convergent media. Fifthly, and lastly, this tool must be harnessed and controlled. It cannot be simply unleashed without proper control or discipline, because this friend can quickly turn into a foe. Thank you for your time.
I want to introduce to you now our next two speakers. Margunn is the lecturer in Gimlekollen School of Journalism and Communication in Kristiansand in Norway. She teaches in the field of communication, media and worldviews, program director of the Communication and Worldview Bachelor program. Tony is a writer, speaker, managing editor of the highly popular culturewatch.org website. He's the author or co-author of 9 books on media. Will you give a warm welcome to Tony and Margunn?
Hello. Wherever technology goes, local and global media messages soon follow on. Unlike my PowerPoint, there we go. Mobile phones were once an expensive luxury. Just 2 decades ago, even in the West, a mobile phone like this would have cost a lot. And now they're common across the entire world. Across many parts of Africa, they're even used as a banking system. According to the United Nations, there are now more mobile phones in India than there are toilets. Around half of the population of India have access to a mobile phone, but only about a third have access to modern sanitation. There are still enormous differences between rich and poor nations, and there always will be. But media technology is now having a very significant impact on large parts of the majority world. This graph is comparing North America with Africa. Very different in terms of the number of people who are online in terms of a percentage. More than 3/4 of North Americans, about 10% of Africans. But the rate of growth in Africa is way, way in excess of that of America. There are 2.5 times more people online in America now than there were 10 years ago. 25 times that growth in Africa. So it's a very fast-changing world. 2 out of every 5 users of the internet are in Asia. Google says that the fastest growing country in the world in terms of internet is Indonesia. The world's most popular websites are YouTube, Facebook. Google, of course, is the biggest of all because of the search. Twitter isn't quite in the top 5, but it's a very big part of my life. Windows Live is, I think, the 4th biggest, and of course Wikipedia, which is now available in 175 different languages. There are now more Facebook users in the Arab world than there are readers of newspapers. 1/3 of the population of the United Arab Emirates, for instance, is on Facebook. Satellite television has spread around the world like wildfire. In Iraq, prior to the invasion, satellite television was prohibited, satellite dishes were prohibited. In the following year, 7 million satellite dishes were bought by a population of only 24 million people.
And we encounter both local and global media messages through news and entertainment, don't we? And as for news, when we are gathered here, that is actually the global level of how we encounter news that unite us. Just think of the CNN that reaches out to 1 billion every day. Isn't that fantastic? But when you go back home, you are more interested in the local news, aren't you? So out of the 3 levels, the first one, the local one, is really where you dig into your own television, your own radio stations, your own local newspapers. But then, of course, you move on to the second level, don't you? The national ones. And we have, for instance, South African broadcasting corporations. In Norway, we have NRK, and in India, I'm sorry about the pronunciation here, we have the Doordarshan. But all these different nationalities have their own national news services. But then back to the global one that's really uniting us. The CNN we already mentioned. The BBC Worldwide, reaching in 32 different languages. And the Al Jazeera, sorry again for my pronunciation, but it's vital because they reach more than half of all viewers in the Middle East. All these news media present their views from a particular angle. National broadcasters may be supportive or even corrupted, controlled by the government. The local news may be really engaged in campaigning in particular issues, don't they? And of course, both Al Jazeera and CNN often have very distinct perspectives on what's going on in the Middle East. While the global channels in news are increasing, there are very, very interesting things going on the local area. We have, for instance, in Netherlands, the Free Voice that promotes and supports local productions of television news for kids. And we have something similar going on in Peru. I'm sorry about my very, very bad Spanish, but something like no apto para adultos, not for adults. And these young people actually managed to make an interview with the president for this particular channel. And of course, we have the Caribbean Kids Network and Youth Voices in Burma.
And then, of course, there's the entertainment media, which, although we are very aware of the news day by day, the entertainment media are a big part of our lives. Films coming from the Middle East are very interesting in the West at the moment. There's been a big rise of those. There's a rise generally of global entertainment media. It's not just about Western films going all around the world, but about films from around the world traveling to other parts of the world as well. There we have soaps, of course. American soaps are big, and so are South American soaps in many parts of South America. And they're very popular in West Africa and many other places as well. The biggest musical form in the world is hip-hop, which has local variations all around the world. There are many African, particularly African approaches to hip-hop, giving it a very local feel.
A lot of Christian mission and aid organizations have really introduced modern technology into new contexts. But very rarely have we given the tools and the resources to help people to engage in these technologies. Through all the news and the entertainment media, we encounter an enormous variety of media messages. None of these are neutral. And of course, none of us are neutral observers. So the media messages from the West, for instance, promote a lot of secularism or materialism, but Islamic and Christian broadcasting is very significant as well, especially here, where we are now in Africa. All these media messages, whether news or entertainment, communicate things about beliefs, about values, about attitudes. That is, they communicate worldview themes and perspectives. And it's vital, therefore, that we learn how to engage missiologically with these messages. And one way of doing that is actually start asking questions that help us to reflect on what's actually going on, what's actually being communicated, And Tony will share with us 5 key questions to begin with in this respect.
In just a few seconds, this is only a very, very brief introduction. These questions are to help us reflect on media messages and to uncover the worldview themes. We'll talk about this in more detail in our dialogue session tomorrow afternoon. But let me just give you 5 key areas that we have to think about when we're engaging with any media, whether it's reading the newspaper, watching a television program, a film, or listening to music. Firstly, what is this saying about reality? Second, what is this saying about the nature of humanity? What is this saying about knowledge and wisdom? Where does wisdom come from? Where do we find meaning? What is it saying about morality and ethics, how we know what is right and wrong? And finally, how do we know what humans need above everything else? What is humanity's deepest need?